Bishop Academy Books. Presenting The Children's Encyclopedia by Arthur Mee.
The great stories of the world that will be told forever. What these pages tell us. There is a kingdom that belongs to us all. Its gates are never closed. Yet no man has seen half the wonderful things this kingdom holds. Its enchanted islands, its silvery streams, its magic caves, its mysterious rooms, its giants and fairies and dragons and gnomes. Its marvelous ways down in the sea, under the earth, up in the clouds, its wondrous color, its heavenly music, its secrets of happiness that all who will can find. This kingdom is yours and mine. It is the kingdom of the storybook. Here we will walk its streets together and hear the stories children have been told since human life began. We shall read the stories they told in Babylon and Greece and Rome. The fables and legends and chivalry and golden deeds and fairy tales that have come down to us in books. We shall see the imagination of the world working through all ages among all peoples. King Midas. Here is a story which in olden times the reeds would tell the winds that rush across the surface of the earth. One day when Gordius, the plowman of Phrygia, came up to the city in a cart drawn by the white bulls, a crowd thronged to him, shouting, "The king is dead! You are to reign over us, for the oracle has said, 'Put on the throne the first man entering the town in a cart drawn by white bulls.'" The grateful Gordius betook himself to the temple, where he fastened the cart to the altar with such clever knots that no ends could be seen. And the oracle declared that whoso should untie this knot should conquer Asia. It was not long till after that Alexander, conquering the world, cut the Gordian knot with his sword. But Midas, the son of Gordius, did not care about conquering Asia. He loved a quiet life and never thought of wars. Yet his quiet country life was soon to be shaken. One day some shepherds of Phrygia carried to the palace a man they had found wandering in the country, and Midas recognized him as Silenus, the friend of Dionysus. Delighted to befriend him, he entertained him for 10 days and nights with an unceasing round of jollity. But on the 11th day, thinking that Dionysus must sadly miss his friend, King Midas took him back. Thereupon Dionysus, in his joyfulness at seeing his counselor once more, offered Midas whatever he wished. Truly, a wonderful chance had come for him, had Midas been wise. But the poor king, too greatly excited to think wisely, begged that everything he touched might change into gold. Dionysus, though lamenting the astonishing choice of his friend, consented, and so it was ordained. King Midas went on his way rejoicing. At first everything went well with him, and the king could scarcely believe his eyes. If he picked up a twig, it became gold in his hands. If he touched a stone, it was transformed. His very throne was turned to gold as he sat down on it. But alas, how was King Midas going to live? Too late the awful truth began to dawn on him. All the food he carried to his lips, every drink with which he sought to quench his thirst, were solid gold for him. Even worse was yet to come, for when he kissed his child, she changed into a golden statue before his wondering eyes. Burdened with this terrible affliction, the king of Phrygia strove to get rid of his fearful power, but all his striving was in vain. At length, in his despair, he implored the god to deliver him from the consequences of his foolish prayer. And Dionysus heard him and yielded. "Go to the river Pactolus," said the god to Midas, "and plunge into the stream. Midas went, and scarcely had he touched the waters when his power passed to the river, so that the sands have carried gold dust ever since. From that time, hating wealth and splendor, Midas dwelt in the woods and became a friend of Pan, god of the fields. Often would he take Pan to his palace, and in the king's garden, Pan would cut fresh reeds for his famous flute, on which he played tunes so sweet that lambs would follow him and chanted. The new happiness that had come to him greatly rejoiced the king, who became a worshipper of Pan. But alas, things were to take a tragic turn for Midas. Apollo, making fun of Pan one day, the god of the fields, answered with a challenge, saying, "My flute is well worth your lyre," and Midas offered his hall for a concert. On the appointed day, a great crowd hastened to the palace. Apollo had invited his 9 sisters, the Muses, who came down from the lofty mountains and arrived with Apollo, who rode on the silver wings of his famous horse Pegasus, whose flight was like the lightning flash. Pan began. He copied the melodious call of the blackbird, the jolly chirping of the sparrow, the thrilling note of the nightingale. Midas loved the song of birds, and applauding long, he hardly listened to Apollo's play. However, the victory was awarded to the god of the lyre, and all but Midas accepted the judgment. The anger of Apollo with Midas knew no bounds, and annoyed that the king's ears should be so depraved, he resolved that they should no longer retain their human form. As Midas mounted his horse on his way back to the palace, Apollo murmured some words of which only the first and last could be heard, but none paid any attention, and Midas rode away. It was not till he was once more at the palace with his barber that he caught sight of his shadow and found he had ass's ears. Apollo had avenged himself. The king vowed his barber to solemn secrecy on pain of losing his own ears, and a new headdress for Midas hid his affliction from the people. Only the barber knew, and well he kept the secret, until at last the burden of it was more he could bear. And so one day the barber ran to a field, dug a hole, lay flat on the ground, and whispered into the hole, "Midas, King Midas, has ass's ears." Then, having covered up the hole, the barber went home with a lighter heart, but little guessing what would follow. In the following year, as he happened to pass by the field, he noticed, waving in the wind, a tuft of reeds, and hardly could our barber believe his ears, for at every touch of the wind the reeds were saying, "Midas, King Midas, has ass's ears." The poor barber fell stricken to the earth, dead. Soon after, a child passed by that way and heard the same words on the wind, and the child repeated them, so that soon the secret of King Midas was known all over the world.